Hey, welcome into another week of Unlocked with Fox's Brock Huard. I'm Lance Taylor for the next round. It is on Disrupt the Media. Make sure you like, subscribe, give us that thumbs up. We would appreciate that. It is always brought to you by our friends at MyBookie. Use that code next round. Get a free deposit, first deposit bonus, mybookie.ag. Make sure you use that code next round. Conference championship games are here. You're going to be in Las Vegas. That's one of those towns. I used to be able to do 72 hours. I backed it up. I cannot do more than 48 hours. I like the town a lot. It takes advantage of me while I take advantage of it. But you're doing something pretty cool that people have been talking about. How much did the Sphere cost to build? Wasn't it like SoFi, like $1 billion?
Oh, I think it was, it was outrageous. It was outrageous. I thought you were going to ask how much of the tickets that Benetti is supporting our crew with. I don't know. He won't tell me. He won't tell me because he went to the U2 concert like a month ago. He was there, Jason was, for something. And he's like, I'm going to go to this U2 concert in the Sphere, see what it's all about. And he just was raving. So as we were watching, knowing that last year we had the Pac-12 title game. Every year it flip-flops between networks, or it did. This year we have the Mountain West, and we're watching. I'm like, man, my Air Force right down the road. I get a home game, can have the crew at my house, just entertain them all here. And they're starting 8-0. I'm almost like booking air mattresses downstairs in the basement for the crew to sleep in. And then they just went and just lost 4 in a row, got beat up. And then as we're kind of looking at it, is it Boise? Is it San Jose? UNLV? And I don't know if you know this. I don't know how much you cover the Mountain West, but they have 3 computers that decided it Sunday morning. So it was a 3-way tie. They were all 6-2, and it went to 3 different computers based on those rankings to figure out the 2 that are going to play. And ultimately it's in Vegas. That will follow so I'll get to watch the Huskies and Ducks Friday night from down there, which will be great. And then they got to turn it right around, and we'll kick off at noon on Saturday.
So who drew the short straw? San Jose State?
Yes. Yeah. If you're San Jose State, you're pretty bummed because you just beat UNLV. Yeah.
Well, you just beat them, and they're the hottest team actually in the Mountain West.
Correct.
After that 1-5 start, they just been rolling.
They have. And Brennan can coach, man. He's their head coach, a good coach. And I actually remember way back when Kalen DeBoer was hired, it was really him or the San Jose State coach. Just 2 guys from that conference that can both get the most out of their personnel. Kalen has certainly done that. And I think that head coach will be a coach somewhere here sooner rather than like the job that he's done in San Jose. And heck, the job that Barry Odom did at UNLV this year to go 9-3 down there. First 9-win season since I think Randall Cunningham in 1984.
You're right. And I was watching a UNLV game, believe it or not, when you asked me how much I watched the Mountain West, lanceslock.com, every league, we throw them out there. But they showed, and this is about a month ago, they showed a Randall Cunningham cut and how cheap the gear and uniforms were back in the 80s, and especially with a program like UNLV before Tarkanian really got it up and rolling.
Yeah. Just the mesh shirts.
Yeah. And terrible helmets with the decal is all clawed up. So you're going to be in Vegas. And speaking of Vegas and the Pac-12, that is where the Pac-12 championship is. And Vegas right now has Oregon a 9.5-point favorite over a team they've already beaten. And to me, I thought the number would come Oregon 4 or 5, just based on where these teams are right now. But a lot of people think this is going to be a bloodbath. And Michael Penix, as good as Bo Nix is, and maybe he wins this Heisman Trophy, and maybe he, shuts it down and solidifies it on Friday night against Washington, avenging that loss. But to me, Michael Penix is a better quarterback.
Well, Bo, it's tough for me to say that. I watched them back-to-back nights, right? So I had the Civil War Friday night. We got on a bus and drove up to Seattle. Had just, honestly, about 4 or 5 times, Lance, where I was like pinching myself. Like, this is a college football fan's dream. And actually, Jake Dickert on the field Saturday before the kick. I always go down to the field, see the coaches, players, kind of get my last eyes on guys. He said the same thing. He's like, you ever realize how cool your job is? And I'm like, I do. There are many times I do. And on this trip in particular, but watching the level that Bo is playing with right now and playing at Lance, I think you say that you probably have scar tissues from 3 years at Auburn, right? Where you watched him down there up close. And the folks on the West Coast don't have that. They don't have many of those memories. They just know that this dude's making his 60th start, which will never be done again in the history of college football. As long as there's not another pandemic, who knows? There might be with the way our world works. You never know. But if there is not, I mean, outside of force du jour, 60th start
It's
in college
insane.
football.
And Penix can't be far behind. He's got to be
No,
around
he is.
50.
He got banged up a few different years at Indiana, so he actually is. I think he's somewhere in the 40s.
Yeah, and I
But
guess when Bo played a 10-game schedule in 2020,
correct.
Penix with the Big Ten, they were playing those silly 4 or 5 game schedules.
Correct.
Yeah, whatever it was.
And the following year got banged up and didn't play. Penix got a more NFL arm, but the brain right now, the processing, what Bo is doing, Lance, we sat with him and literally, I mean, these guys that I sit with now compared to 10 years ago, these are like pros, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they were already at some places getting paid like pros. Now they're all getting paid. But just, when you've been at it 6 years, 5 years, you got 60 starts under your belt. He's got an online, probably an online class maybe, but he is in there on Tuesday. Seriously, he is. He walked through our schedule with us. He's like, the first time in 5 years where I feel like my routine is great. I wish I would have learned it earlier. I'm like, Bo, you couldn't do that 5 years ago. You actually had to go to classes because now you have no class. You're in staff meetings. He sits with the staff for 4 hours on Tuesdays.
I believe that, and I think there was so much pressure, him being a legacy, and all of this pressure coming in and playing at Auburn. And his first game, by the way, and I found that I went back and I looked at the numbers because I think I did it on the fly with you. But his first game ever was against Justin Herbert in Oregon.
Yep.
And, from that moment, Gus Malzahn after the game said, this kid is going to do special things. And so that pressure was always there for him. But him and Herbert have the exact same amount of starts. I think Herbert has one more because of one postseason start. But, boy, that just shows you the experience of Bo Nix. And, look, it's been an incredible story. With all this said, the team that you cover mostly with the sports talk you do in Seattle is Washington. I mean, Washington, with all the experience, we talk about experience, the defensive side of the ball. I mean, they've got 5th, 6th-year guys back there. They've got to have a fighting shot, right?
They do. We'll get to the Seahawks maybe later. And I just ask you, which is the more surprising line? The Seahawks 9.5-point dogs in Dallas Thursday night, or the Huskies 9.5 in Vegas to the Ducks? Which of those two, and I'll get to UW here in a second, which of those two kind of hits you?
Well, so obviously you get more inflated college numbers. In the NFL, you seldom see a double-digit dog.
Right.
And I don't know, man. Dallas seems to play up and down to competition.
They do. And the Seahawks are totally desperate. And I don't know the last time Pete lost 3 in a row. It's not very often. And how many times in a row he's laid an egg on national television as they did last week on Thanksgiving. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And they're desperate.
And you said this before, McVay has got his number for whatever reason. So they've lost 2 to them. And then last week they just ran into a juggernaut, which is San Francisco. San Francisco, we saw them against Dallas. They outclassed them. They were much better.
Yep.
And I saw Seattle in week 2 go on the road and beat a better, in my opinion, Detroit team than Dallas. So to me, that number surprises me a little bit more because I've heard for the last couple of weeks that Oregon was going to be the favorite here. I'm just a little surprised it's above a touchdown.
That's a big number. Yeah, 9.5. So Oregon, we had Kalen DeBoer on our show this morning, and he brought up a good point that really because everybody said, hey, look, since October 14th, the day that those two teams play, they've gone in different directions, right? Oregon has just blown the doors off of everybody. Nobody in college football has a better scoring differential. Nobody has a better yardage differential, the game control, all the things that the committee has factored in and why they've got him number 5. But Kayla made a good point, which I had not thought of nor made myself. And that was, hey, listen, since October 14th, they've been in win or go home. I mean, their backs were right up against the wall. Like if they wanted to realize their goals, and they too, Lance, are grown men. 6-year senior D tackle, 6-year senior D tackle, 7th-year senior D tackle, right? 4th-year defensive end, 4th-year line. They're all just grown men. There's not babies playing out there. They're all 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th-year guys on both sides. So it's going to be, a very professional. It's going to feel like it's going to be an NFL stadium. Going to have an NFL kind of vibe to it. And the Huskies, for the first time since October 14th, will actually have that reversed. Instead of the biggest target on them, instead of making everybody's season, instead of trying to chase perfection, which had never been done in conference play until they got it done to go 9-0, now it's the other side. Now it's like, oh, really? You don't think we got a chance? You think we're the underdog? We beat these guys the last 2 times we played them, this year and last year. We know who they are. They know who we are. They know our weapons. And I think most importantly for Michael Penix, because I don't know how much of the Apple Cup you got to watch, And I just saw the numbers. I think it was the most watched Apple Cup in history. Almost 6 million people off of the Michigan-Ohio State
No,
game.
I had Washington minus 16.5. I watched.
Yeah. Oh, you did watch. I'm sorry. I would have. Well, maybe I don't know what I would have told you. Rivalry games are always really, really hard to predict. See Auburn, Alabama as well. But you watch that game, and at the end of it, Penix is under the hood, and that's actually where he talks to the offensive coordinator. So it's not like he was throwing up necessarily in there, but he couldn't even watch. And his OC said yesterday, "Wow, he was a little under the weather." He wasn't sick. He was just emotionally done. Yeah. Senior day, all he's been through, chasing perfection, carrying all that he's carried this year. He's kind of the silent assassin. He isn't one that's real verbose. He doesn't wear all of that. And I think, honestly, after nearly back-to-back interceptions and then a sack, I mean, he was just done. And he got under that hood and was just totally and completely spent. And if there's anything that re-energizes you like Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, it's been a 9.5 point underdog in the championship.
He is Fox's Brock Huard. This is Unlocked. It is brought to you by Lance's Lock. Jump on board. The NBA, college basketball, all the conference championship games, sides, totals, player props. We do it all at lanceslock.com. So there is going to be controversy when we talk next week at whatever time about who the 4 teams are in the playoff. Do you foresee, because the fear in SEC country is Alabama beats Georgia and both Georgia and Alabama are left out. I don't see any world where if Alabama beats Georgia, both of those teams to me should be in. But do you see, based on the last year of the Pac-12, Washington, Oregon, would you almost guarantee me the winner is in?
Yeah, the winner's going to be in. I mean, they're sitting there at 3-5. And the committee has had Oregon, where Oregon sat here for the last every one of these rankings, right? Ahead of a one-loss Texas, ahead of a one-loss Alabama. They love the metrics. They love the game control. They love the numbers. They love everything that they have done. If Oregon wins, they're going to be in. If Washington wins, they're going to be in. If Florida State wins, they're going to be in. Michigan wins, they're going to be in. So I have a hard time with any of those 4. Whoever those 4 winners are, and obviously that leaves one last spot. Florida State beats Louisville and goes 13-0. They are going to be in. Washington beats Oregon and they go 13-0. They're in. Michigan goes 13-0 and beats Iowa. They're in. Those 3 are in. I don't think there's any other way around that.
I have got no problem with Washington. I've got no problem with Michigan. But Florida State is a different team without Jordan Travis. And if it truly is the best teams and not the most deserving teams, and I know people are going to say, why do you play a regular season? But you can't tell me that a one-loss Georgia or a one-loss Alabama SEC champion is not much better than Florida State. And talking about numbers in Vegas, both of those would be 14-plus favorites over Florida State.
Mm-hmm. Well, where it gets interesting then is also, and I don't know if that's going to happen. I really don't. I think Michigan's going to handle Iowa.
Yeah, I think that's a given. I think that's the one thing we know.
Yes, I toss up. What's the line in the Florida State Louisville game?
It's only Florida State 2.5.
Yeah. So that's an absolute coin flip. I could see the Cardinals going up and down the field and Brahms scoring a little bit. Wouldn't surprise me at all. So these things they really do. They tend to work themselves out.
We've said that every week.
I know, but this year is different, right? This year, these top 5 teams have not lost. These AP teams at the very top. We usually see a weekend of chaos. Over the years, we usually see the Pac-12 devour itself and carnivorous and take care of business. That didn't happen. Washington ran the table. Does a one-loss Washington team, if that is a coin flip, right? If it's 41-38, if it's 42-42 and Oregon makes the field goal and wins 45-42, is a one-loss Washington ahead of a one-loss Ohio State? Is a one-loss Washington ahead of a one-loss Georgia or Alabama? If Alabama were to win? I don't think so. I think the challenge is, and the committee is going to say, just as they did, and why they had Washington at 5 behind Florida State continually was, game control. Yeah, Arizona State. Yeah, Stanford. Yeah, Utah. Yeah, or all those games were a toss-up. We don't care that you won. You didn't have enough style points. And I don't see a one-loss Washington getting in ahead of an Ohio State, nor a one-loss SEC team. I don't see that happening.
Well, I mean, I think there is something to brand too. Now, some people on the other side would say there's Georgia, there's Alabama fatigue, there's even some Ohio State fatigue. But I think when it comes down to a one-loss Georgia or one-loss Washington. I think the brand's going to get the benefit of the doubt.
Yes, I would tend to agree with that. And what they did over 12 games and being largely dominant, maybe not a strength of schedule and strength of opponent, that Washington had to play through their gauntlet of at SC and at Oregon State and everything else. But yeah, not a year that I'm envious of those committee members if things go in some sort of chaotic fashion this weekend.
So we're heading to Atlanta for the SEC championship game. And I skipped last year. I didn't go to LSU, Georgia. Didn't expect it to be much of a game. Ultimately, it wasn't much of a game. Last time I went was 2021. And that was a shocking game to a lot of people based on the fact that Alabama rolled into that game. Mm-hmm. They were injured. Their offensive line was playing terribly, and they were facing one of the best college defenses we had ever seen. In Alabama, everything just hit right. They played an incredible game, and they ultimately won, and they went on and rematched with Georgia for the national championship en route to Georgia's first national championship in 40 years. I think we're going to get another hell of a game. I don't know how you feel about this. Bowers was out last week. I think they held him back purposely, trying to get him more healthy. The same with Ladd McConkey. Both of those guys are going to be on the field Saturday. But with Jalen Milroe, he has kind of become the ultimate X factor, and I don't know how you see this one playing out. But winner, in my opinion, we know if Georgia wins, they should be in. I find it hard to believe if Alabama beats a team that has won 29 consecutive games and back-to-back national championships, they're going to get shut out. So this is ultimately a playoff game.
Yes, it is. And so is Washington, Oregon. I mean, we don't have 12 teams. We'll have that next year. A lot of this stuff will kind of dissipate and go away, I think. I don't think the depth is going to stretch beyond 12 next year to lead to quite so many of these emotional conversations. So I'm in the booth. They had the shot of Herbie, right? I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
Snoop Cam in the booth. Same thing as our game is going on. I'm looking over there. We got a TV, not as big as theirs up in the corner, but our stat guy had it on over there. I'm like, oh man, Bama just lost. That's crazy. Like Auburn, you freeze, just finds a way. And after that debacle with New Mexico State, they just rally like fourth and third. Like it doesn't happen. There's the odds of that should be 1 in 100. Like that should not happen. Maybe even more. And I was.
Yeah, according to Gamecast, it was 99.9% was the win percentage for Auburn at 4th and 31. And then that complete missile that Milroe threw to the back of the end zone. Great catch. Terrible defense call.
I mean, terrible. As bad as you could possibly ever play defense. It was a good throw. But when you're throwing from 35, 40, like that's as bad. My son could have played better defense in that position.
All you got to do is turn around.
I mean, it was just so Hugh Freeze said he didn't sleep. I mean, I can't imagine if I was a War Eagle and everything of this season, the ups and the downs, but at least you could hang your hat on that. Like we derailed him, we beat him, we knocked him off, and then oh my gosh.
Well, and imagine if you are a Florida State or a Texas or an Oregon and Alabama
or Washington,
right? Or Washington.
Yes.
And you look back and you're like, oh my God, all they had to do was play defense on 4th and 31. And we're in a college football playoff.
Come on, what are we doing here? Just see the ball. Just have eyes to the ball. Just, play the ball, and it's over. It's done. And they're probably even going to let you get away with some contact and not necessarily want to throw a penalty in that situation. I mean, it just was, it was shocking. So can a one loss, if Alabama beats Georgia, a one loss Alabama jump a one loss Texas? Can a one loss Alabama jump a one loss Ohio State that was sitting there, remember, at number one over and over and over?
No, I think again. Ohio State, I don't think I'm one of those. And look, I do it my way, whatever. But Texas beat them head-to-head in Tuscaloosa. And I don't care how the teams are playing right now. Texas gets the nod in front of Alabama. But
I'd have to do the same thing. If I'm in that committee room, then what are we doing? Like, Booger McFarland tweeted that out. Like, how is this going to be any kind of controversy? Like, they went head-to-head. What more do you want? And they did it in your house. Yeah. And that is the beauty of college football. Whether you like it or you hate it, it's going to change. And sadly, it's going to change because there's elements of this and this was when I was at ESPN for all those years, Lance. It was the thing that they would hold fast to, the thing that differentiates us from the gorilla of the NFL. And that is every week matters. And you don't know which week it's going to be, where there could be chaos. You don't know which loss there's going to be in September or October that could spin around and get you at the end of the year. But every week matters. And week 2 mattered in September, playing in their building, right? After last year where they also went toe-to-toe. And if the corner from Texas doesn't close his eyes on a corner blitz and tackles Bryce Young, they win that game.
Right.
So they're right there with them. It's not as if, oh, well, we don't really know athletically or, size, or we'd beat them. Like, no. They went toe to toe with you for the last 2 years and beat you in your building this year. And that has to get the benefit of the doubt.
So gut feel as we record Unlocked right here on Disrupt the Media. Like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up. It is always brought to you by MyBookie, mybookie.ag. Use that code next round. They're going to hook you up at checkout. Gut feel right now, who wins? Georgia, Bama?
Georgia. Just
You think
still too
tight
many horses.
Game, though?
Yeah, I think still a tight game. Just too many horses defensively, right? Just too much depth. How many teams this year, Lance, when we travel around college football, and certainly in Eugene with a couple disciples, Kirby and Nick and Tosh Lapoy and Dan Lanning, like, yeah, you see the way they built their team. Week 1, when I had Rice, Texas, week 1, and talked to Steve week 13. In week 1, he was like, hey, man, I saw it. I saw firsthand and up close what you have to do. You have to build 24 defenders. And that when that 2 deep comes on, it's in all the different pieces of it. That's what Georgia's done. We can talk about as much as anything else. And I love this component of it because Pete Carroll changed college football in the 2000s. He played true freshmen more before anybody else. There was still that, you redshirt, you grow them. We win with old guys. And Pete was like, this freshman's ready. I'll take my lumps in September, and we're going to win titles in November and December. We're going to be better with them. And what Kirby's done in the last 3, 4, 5 years there, Georgia, and Nick before him, but even Kirby more, is we're going to build 2 deep in today's college football. Have to have it. Time, tempo, plays, everything. Longer seasons. Going to play now 13, 14, 15 games. Got to have 24 guys. And Oregon's got it. Texas has got it. Georgia's got it, and I think got more depth than Alabama does going into this one.
So to the NFL, best record still Philadelphia. They found another way to win in bad conditions against Buffalo. Truly is amazing. They're getting outgained. They're getting outplayed in some situations, but they just know how to win. But now they've got San Francisco, and you and I have talked about this 49 roster, which we believe it's the best in all of football. And I still go back last year, and maybe this is because AtlantisLock.com, we had the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. Once Brock Purdy gets hurt, they don't have a quarterback. They can't throw the football.
Yep.
Game's over, so we really don't know how that game would have played out. This is a personal game for San Francisco because if you lose this one, still a lot of season to go, but it looks like that number 1 seed is almost locked up.
Agreed.
With a 3-game lead for Philadelphia at that point and the head-to-head. San Francisco, better roster, but Philadelphia's got the intangibles. Who do you like in this one?
Remind me where it's played again.
This one is going to be in, I think
San Francisco.
Yeah,
is
I
it?
think so. I think.
I'll
tell you as you're talking about it.
Why don't you effort that and see where it's going to be played? And I'll tell you one guy, and I don't know why he doesn't get more pub. Maybe it's because he's been in Bobby Wagner's shadow as a middle linebacker for the last 10 years, where Bobby's been the All-Pro and the gold shoes and the 99 Madden rating and everything else. But Fred Warner is a much, much better player than Bobby Wagner, and has been the last 3-4 years. I mean,
how is Wagner better this year than he was last year with the Rams, though?
He's not. He's really not. I mean, some of the tackle numbers, you got to kind of really watch the game. He's still productive, and he's a great guy.
It's in Philly.
He's slowed down. It's in Philly.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, weather will probably play a little. The conditions. I mean, for San Fran is a team that I think on turf and on short grass is going to be better in a dome environment. I think would favor those guys just because of their overall team speed and McCaffrey. And that Philly field, man, you get to this time of the year and you saw it in some inclement weather and what they've had to overcome, but you play on that field. I've seen it up close and personal in December and January. It can be rugged. And if it's wet and nasty, that is a huge, huge advantage to the Philadelphia Eagles. But man, Fred Warner's an X factor. He really is. And when you have Jalen Hurts, and as much as he can run and do all the things that he can do, having a guy like Fred that is to me more than just a spy. I hate that word spy. Oh, look at the spy. We're going to spy. We're going to spy. No.
Auburn was spying on 4th and 31, by the way. Like he's going to take it to the house, 31 yards.
Ludicrous. Just ludicrous.
But
hey, I would favor San Fran. They're, again, a little more desperate team. To your point, desperation to me matters. I don't know how you factor that in your bets, Lance, and human nature and everything else. But I find like, oh yeah, we got a little cushion. We built ourselves up a little bit. San Fran has no more cushion. If they want to be the number 1 seed, they've got to go get this one.
Hey, on the flip side in the AFC, like my top play this past weekend in the NFL was Jacksonville. And we had a 6-3 Saturday. We ended up going 2-1 on Sunday, and then we had the Bears on
Nice.
Monday night. So we had a nice weekend in football, no doubt. But and my one loss, by the way, was Zay Flowers trying to show out. All he had to do was take a knee, and we get home and we have a perfect slate in the NFL. But with all that said, Jacksonville, it wasn't an easy win, but they get out of there, get out of Houston with the win, and now they're your number one seed in the AFC. I thought they were going to be good. I thought they would win the South. I did not expect them at this point in the season to be the number one seed in the deep AFC.
Yeah, I kind of like their front, man. They got some dudes, and they stockpiled some of those top picks in the past. And
Josh Allen is unblockable, man.
Oh my gosh, you just watch the relentlessness of their crew, and kudos to CJ Stroud. He has been phenomenal. I actually watched a bunch of that game this weekend, Lance, and just his poise. And he's gonna maybe silence this whole Ohio State QB thing. He might be the elixir to it, because of his accuracy and his anticipation and just how much his game translates to the NFL level. But yeah, Jacksonville to me, and when we started to see this last year, they turned last year. They make the playoff run last year. Trevor gets comfortable. Doug Peterson's an excellent, QB trainer, QB coach, head coach, sees it through those lenses. But the thing that just strikes me is just speed, fast, violent, physical. Those things that, if you could do it week in and week out, and they're young enough and have young enough people to still be doing that, yeah, you become a pretty dangerous animal.
Okay, before we wrap here on another edition of Unlocked, I asked this question of guys on the next round earlier today. If Bryce Young, sight unseen in the NFL, we can't see any of this crap that's gone down in Carolina with Frank Reich being fired. If it's just Bryce Young taking a year off, and the lasting impression was Bryce Young against Kansas State last year and winning a Heisman Trophy in 2021. If he came out with this deep class of quarterbacks, where does he go? Is he number 2 behind Caleb Williams?
Mm-hmm. And there's so take this year totally away, right? Just wipe this year totally away and take him coming off of that Sugar Bowl and put him in this draft class. Oof.
Because it looks bad right now, and everybody's like, "Oh, I told you CJ Stroud was the guy." Well, I think if you flipped him, I think Bryce would have some success in Houston, and I think CJ would have issues in Carolina.
I would tend to totally agree with that. Yeah, I think Caleb. Now the evaluation over the next 2-3 months, Lance, is going to be pretty fascinating. The hay is not totally in the barn. I know that these guys, McShay and DJ, love to say that most of the evaluation is done. The hay is in the barn. It's over. It's all about the tape. I don't think so. I think it's about your Senior Bowl. I think it's about your combine. I think it's about your interviews. And I don't know if I told you this story, and if I did, you can stop me. But some years ago when I was doing the NFL, I had Buffalo and I had Josh Allen. And then we had a good chat with their GM Bean.
Can I ask you this? It wasn't the Rams game where they got the phantom 4th down
call.
It
was exactly that game. It was exactly that game.
So pathetic. Anyway.
It was a pathetic call, and I think I said that as much. We didn't have the relationship that you and I do now. But
do you remember the defensive back it was on? Sadly, I do.
No.
It was Darius Williams.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Poor guy. He got totally hosed on that. It was ridiculous. But anyhow, that year, or in the draft process, we were talking about them getting to Josh Allen, because that year is going to be similar to this year, where it's going to be some Baskin Robbins, right? What flavor do you want? That year, that was Rosen and Allen and Darnold and Lamar and Baker. And 5 dudes first round. I think we're going to have easily 5 in this first round, maybe more. And he said, one of the big keys, in the whole evaluation for us, because if the hay was in the barn with just the film, Josh was hyper inaccurate, 50-something% passer in Wyoming in the wind tunnel. But what was really important is they took all 5 of them and brought them to their place and had given them the playbook and a set of plays. And then they all came in for their formal interviews and put them on the whiteboard. And there was, Q&A, and he was off the charts. He was clear cut out of the 5 in their mind, like the one we're going to take. And it's going to be the same way with this QB class, with Caleb, with Drake, with JJ if he comes out, with Bo, with Jaden, with Penix, who's probably going to fall down a rung or two just because of his injury history. But my gosh, it's going to be fascinating. To answer your question point blank, he'd be behind Caleb.
Yeah.
Just because of the size and the athleticism factor.
Yeah, and I know you're a former quarterback, so you're a rep guy, but I brought up Carson Beck is draft eligible. And I really think over his next 3 games, if they beat Alabama, could put himself up there. Again, I know they like quarterbacks to have a lot of reps, but he's got the size. He can make every throw on the field.
Yeah.
And if he was to dominate against an Alabama defense and then a Michigan defense, who knows? I mean, that guy could rise quickly.
He could. He's going to have to fight the Mitch Trubisky. He's going to have to fight the Trey Lance. He's going to have to fight the stories here of the last 3, 4, 5 years where the league might not be that smart and it may still be, at times a copycat league. But I think the struggles of those one and done, Mitch and Trey over the last couple of years, like, no.
Yeah, and Mark Sanchez.
Yeah, I mean, Sanchez was further back, but yeah, just in recent memory, 49ers give up, and 49ers not wrong very often, right?
Yeah.
Like they have hit, home run. They were dead wrong on that one. And I think the league would go, ooh, if John and Kyle missed out on that, and, they thought just the 1 year was enough, maybe there is something to see in 60 starts for Bo Nix.
Well, and I don't know if you've ever spent time in Athens, Georgia, but if I'm Carson Beck, I get an NIL deal. I come back to Athens and I slay it on the field.
Did you
and
say
have
you
a lot
get
of fun.
one? You think he doesn't?
Oh, I think he's got one, but I think he's got a little what we call leverage now.
That's true, brother. That is true.
And he could be like, you know what? I could go to the NFL unless you guys want to, throw together $1 million and a couple of cars. So
yeah, I got I don't know if you saw that one little viral. I just slipped in a little comment on my radio show this week in Seattle about Cam Ward having multiple 7-figure offers already out there. And actually someone down, I think in Arkansas land caught that and it's kind of gone a few places. And I mean, that's straight, like my source about as good as it gets on that one. So
SEC?
I don't know the exact schools. I just know that he has multiple 7-figure offers.
Well, look, you've seen him, and the play wasn't as good. Like in September, he was electrifying. But we had on your colleague Joel Klatt, and I asked him early on when people weren't talking about Cam Ward. I said, if Alabama had Cam Ward, and this is when Jalen Milroe was struggling a little bit.
Yep.
He said, I think Alabama would win the national championship. Cam Ward's that good. So, you put him in the right system with the right talent around him, he could be exceptional.
Auburn, Arkansas, A&M. It'll be there's going to be a bunch of West Coast schools, a bunch of bidders. He grew up a lot. He grew on me a lot this year. I saw him, as I said, last year against Wisconsin, big win. Saw them this year and the start they got to. But there's something to some grit. There's something to Bo Nix and having some scars. That old Poison song, right? The wound heals, but that scar will remain. And having some of those wounds and having some of those scars and having some of that scar tissue and overcoming some of the adversity. Joe Burrow, leaving Ohio State, first year at LSU, wasn't all that particularly good, but just learning and growing from that. And Cam's a pretty mature kid. He grew on me quite a bit with his just emotional maturity and mentality and handling everything. And yeah, he's going to be a pretty good get wherever he lands.
Only unlocked with Fox's Brock Huard can you get the vernacular and go deep with verbose.
Sure.
And then we get the lyrics quoted from one of the greatest love songs of all time, one of the greatest ballads, in Every Rose, and Bret Michaels and Poison.
That's its thorn. Sure.
Hey, have fun in Vegas. If you need plays, give me a text, lanceslog.com. We got them for you. Yeah. Enjoyed the Sphere and U2. The only time I had an opportunity to see U2, I was at Super Bowl 36 in New Orleans, Rams versus Tom Brady and the Patriots. And I had a choice whether to run and get a beer because the lines were kind of soft because people wanted to watch U2 or watch U2. And I went and got a beer.
Yeah, they're very polarizing, as it turns out. They're very, very polarizing. The show isn't. I hear the show is unbelievable. I will let you know. Man, we're going to have a lot to talk about next Wednesday.
Yeah, can't wait. You just let me know when you can talk next week, and we'll get together. But always great stuff. It is Unlocked with Fox's Brock Huard. It is brought to you by MyBookie. Use that promo code NEXTROUND to get a first deposit bonus, mybookie.ag. Thanks, brother. Safe travel.
Appreciate you. Thanks, Lance.